You found us. I'm so glad you did, but I am sorry that you had to. Who are we? I'll tell you what we're not. We're not old, we're not boring, and we're not giving up. So come on into our Widow Circle where trauma meets humor, and we remind you that you can not only survive, but thrive. This is Every Widow Thing.
Hi.
Since we're going to be talking about the business of widowhood, I thought we would start by first thanking an Austin neighbor and friend, Ann Keene, who's helping us with our media kit and the business side of the podcast. She's interviewed a lot of people for her most recent book. It is phenomenal. I got her to autograph a copy for my dad. It's called The Cloudbuster 9, The Untold Story of Ted Williams and the Baseball Team that helped win World War II.
We do have a lot of our friend group that has stepped forward to help us with the business side of things. We're going to be launching our website soon.
Yay!
So exciting. Yay. And so I want to give a shout out to Corinne Sheets. She's a web consultant with Insight Web Consulting. And then I just have two friends that have been great giving me advice and information about PR and how to work our social media, because that can be a full-time job. Shout out to Susie Stagland. She's a literary consultant and social media manager. And Sharon Scott from Newhouse PR.
I would like to give a shout out to my dear friend, Joan Groves, who is a graphic designer in California. She did our amazing logo. And also want to shout out to Amy Melsa, the fabulous photographer that made us look fabulous in all of our photos. I appreciate her time doing that for us.
Yes, thank you guys so much. And it helps to know nice, good, generous people.
I think people don't realize that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in order to make this podcast happen. I don't think I realized it.
I didn't realize. I thought it was just posting a couple of things on Instagram and getting in here. And
we just thought it was going for a glass of wine and having a mic nearby.
That would be way more entertaining. As Lacey said, today we are discussing the business side. That's right. The business side of widowhood. Because there is a lot that you have to manage right away. So all of a sudden, you're dealing with the grief and the loss and the shock and the trauma, and you have to do paperwork.
I know. I mean, think about when I just remember back to the ceremony itself. I remember the priest, he was having me pick out songs and pick out this. And I remember I picked out some of the most inappropriate songs. I think about it now and I thought.
Love in an Elevator.
It should have been that.
That would have been hilarious.
It should have been that. Instead, it was, oh my God.
Were they like hymns?
It was a hymn, and the hymn is not at all how I felt. It is well with my soul.
Oh,
it wasn't well with my soul. I was pissed. So I was like, why did I use that as the song?
Well, that's why I got some advice early on from a friend that said, you don't have to do anything right away. You don't have to do a funeral right away. You can do a memorial service later when your brain is more.
Wish I'd heard.
That's what I did.
Ready.
But that's a good first topic, is to talk with your spouse about what do you want.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, before we get into all of the issues once you've become a widow, before you lose that person, there are definitely some things that you need to have a discussion about. What are you cracking up about, Lacey?
I'm thinking, while you're dating a guy, can we talk about how we're going to die?
Listen, I know it's our second date, Juwan, but I was hoping I could get all your passwords.
Joao.
Oh, Joao. Right. Well, he's now down to Juwan. Joao. He's no more wow.
Do you want to be cremated or
the jiu-jitsu studio?
That's right. No, there are definitely some things that you need to talk about with your significant other, or if you don't have a significant other, with a family member, because if you die suddenly, people need to be able to get into your phone. They need to have access to your accounts, passwords.
Oh, my God.
I had this really weird moment with Frank not long before the accident. We have USAA insurance for a lot of things. And he just said to me, if anything ever happens, call them. And they have something called Survivor Services, and I think it's called Survivor Services. And I wasn't the one making the call because people were making calls on my behalf.
Sure.
It's weird. Like, I can still picture him having that conversation with me. And I think I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever, ha, ha, ha. We don't have to talk about that. It was like this moment that stood out.
Hunter was a huge budgeter, and it was a joke between my friends and I because, it was a little over the top. But I was grateful because about every 6 months, he would sit me down. Well, listen, let me just back up. Every Sunday we had a budget meeting, which was horrific, and I drank a whole bottle of wine during it. But at least every 6 months, he would sit me down and go, these are all of the accounts. This is how much money we have. And then this is where I would have to roll my eyes because he'd be like, so if I never make another dime and we keep living like we're living, we're going to run out of money in 2025 or whatever it is. And I'd always be like, okay, well, just let me know when we're a year out. Like, why do I need to know now? Right?
Just keep making that money.
Right. And then that was the other thing. I was like, you're never going to not make
this budget meeting. Why don't you get back to work, honey?
Get a second job.
Exactly. But then we had that meeting about 2 weeks before he died or something like that. And so I knew very specifically, if I continue spending like I'm spending and living like we're living, we will run out of money. And in our case, it was 5 years. That was a gift to me because, first of all, I didn't feel like I had to sell the house. I had to do this. I had to do that. I knew that I had 5 years if nothing changed. But I also knew everything had changed.
I think that's so smart because for me, a lot of it was the unknown. And Frank and I had 3 young kids, and he traveled a lot for work. So we always kept saying, we're going to sit down and go over it. We're going to sit down and go over it. We were in the process of creating a will and starting to dig into some of that at, 42 and 46. But we hadn't gone all the way like you. And
you've never gone all the way?
I mean, Frank? We did a few times.
How did you have 3?
We did 3 times. I went all the way. But so smart that Hunter was like on top of that because we weren't. We weren't on top of it.
I was thinking about when I met Holly, because your husband had his own business, right?
Yes.
Because that's different. So that had his own challenges. So what did you face differently with that than what we did?
I was very grateful that he was very conservative with his money.
Right.
I bet.
And
it's not like you call HR because there is no HR. So
no, there was no HR.
What did he explain what he did? Like exactly.
He owned his own graphic design business. Basically, 2 of his best friends had to call all of his clients. Thank God I knew his passwords. He had the same password, which is like the easiest password ever.
Was it password?
No.
And now they tell you don't have the same password, and everybody's using these weird
double
passwords.
authenticated.
They want you to change it all the time.
Don't write it down.
It's very stressful.
Yeah.
Maybe we should all share passwords with each other in case.
We should.
I mean,
I had to pass off jobs to other designers that he worked with, and I closed his business. I didn't know what to do.
These are the things people don't think about. When people die, there still is a business that has a life of its own. I mean, we've got to eat. We have to make a living. We have to make sure the finances. Do y'all remember like you'd watch shows and then the person, first thing they would worry about was the life insurance or this or that. And I used to think they killed them for sure.
Oh, right. But that is the first thing you need to think about.
But because I watch way too much Dateline. I love it.
That's one of the first calls you make is life insurance.
And Social Security is one of the early ones too.
Yes.
Because you can get that money stream coming in quickly.
I did not even know about the survivor benefits.
I didn't either. My
me.
dad told me. And so he got me straight over to Social Security Department. But I met with a recent widow, and she doesn't work. And her husband, I don't know if there was sufficient life insurance or not. I didn't ask. But I just said, let's just get that financial stream going quickly, and that.
And you
will
do
help.
get a check. Right? I think it's like $300 or something.
That one
right away.
Out of the gate.
But yeah, but
and
then
the others
you
based on financial, like how much your spouse put in and
right.
all of that. So
and so, as the widow, if you're not working, you will start to get paid a certain amount until your youngest is 16.
Yes.
The children will get paid something until they're 18 or their senior year.
And end of senior year, actually, right could get paid up until the end of senior year because he's already 18.
Oh, so Zach,
So Zach would get paid till the end of senior year.
What will happen is you'll get a letter from Social Security saying Zach is about to turn 18 and he will no longer, or he's turned 18 and he will no longer receive Social Security. And then you will get a form.
They actually sent it to me. And I just filled it out and sent it back. And
the school registrar has to sign off on it.
So how many months more? I don't think I went through this because Thomas is the very end of April and he was pretty much out of school.
It depends on your birthday. Well, wait, no, you could have gotten 2 more months of Social Security checks. It depends on graduation.
Well, I'm glad
date.
we're doing this topic
ladies,
today.
you have to be smart about this stuff. I just left money on the table, apparently.
You did.
Well, I remember meeting with you, Holly, and we were talking about, because you were still kind of out of it.
Yes, you told Tina because Tina went with me to Social Security office.
And you have to take a bunch of stuff that now I can't remember.
It's marriage, death, pay stubs, Social Security number, and all that, obviously.
And I'm sure some people think, golly, I mean, they're thinking about, but that money comes in quickly.
When you have minor children, it actually goes to the widow, and you are supposed to use it towards anything that would be good for that child. That can be your house payment.
Did every month.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
you're
too.
paying for school and for clothes and for
Covered
everything.
the mortgage.
Yeah.
Covered.
And I've had 12 years of living on the money that we got. So I think about whatever, if you had life insurance, the longer you have to live on it.
Well, if you get life insurance, the first thing you need to do is get a good financial advisor.
Yes.
And don't just look one up. I was about to say in the phone book. Don't Xerox it, you guys, from the phone book.
You got to have someone you trust.
Because that money has to last you
a long time.
And you want it invested wisely, which is what happened with mine. Like, you want someone that's investing it so it's making money right away. It's not just sitting in an account.
And it's also, they have to take into account inflation. You tell them, I said, I'll just put 93. Let's say I'm going to live to 93. Whatever I have, how long will it last based on? And he did 6 different scenarios. If I work, if I don't work, if I rent out my garage apartment, if I...
You have to assume that we're going to be young, spry 90-year-olds.
I think we will be.
Let's talk about what
Health
happens.
insurance.
Oh, man.
You had all those surgeries. You had to have great health insurance.
I was on Cobra for 3
Cobra.
years. We were on Cobra for 3 years, yeah.
Which is very expensive.
It was expensive, but it kept everything. It kept all the doctors. It kept the kids in the same pediatrician. It kept all my surgeons.
You can take a breath. You don't need to make all these life changes and decisions in the first month. Or even if you
I would say, don't make big changes like in the first year.
Sure,
Absolutely.
if you are
If you don't have
financially
to, yeah.
able to
Right.
do
If you
so.
don't have to, yeah.
Most people, I guess, would go on Cobra. You didn't? Did you have a Cobra option, Holly? Being
we
self-employed?
had individual insurance through Toby's business, so I just kept it.
Yeah. All right. What about the two of you for insurance?
We had
Lacey?
Cobra, but I did that. It was just so exorbitantly expensive. So I looked for a PPO plan because Oliver died in October. The PPO plans open up in November. So I applied for a PPO plan. I think at the time it was United Healthcare or something like that. And they put you through the ringer. I'll tell it straight out. There are certain things you have to be careful. You got to be honest with your disclosures, obviously. You have to.
Are they going to ask me how many drinks I drink in a week? Because I will not tell the truth.
It's everything. It's drinking, whatever medications you're on, you have to disclose everything there. Should you not qualify, like you've had cancer, they're going to say no, and they can. You're going to go into Obamacare with Obama.
I could talk about insurance
500.
all day, as Holly knows.
We're moving on.
But I do believe that's important.
No, it is. All right, Holly has a list here.
Also, auto insurance.
Yes.
Well, I have an interesting piece of mine that I can just throw in real quick. So we were hit by someone who did not have much of a policy. I think they had the minimum.
Are we talking auto or
auto?
life?
It was like a $30,000 policy. That's what was covered. And obviously, aside from our car being totaled, my husband was killed. My daughter and I probably combined had millions of dollars in medical costs.
Easily, I'm sure.
And in our car insurance policy, we had something called UIM, which is called underinsured motorist.
Yes.
And it's an extra amount of money that you can put in your policy in case this exact thing that happened to us, happens to you, where there's money for medical costs or replacing the car or whatever it may be.
I thought it was
Okay,
required
wow.
by the state of Texas to have. That's just
It
part
probably
of a regular
is, but I
policy.
think the amount can range.
Right. It can range because in our case, there were 3 other families in Toby's accident and their policy was different. And I was like, wait, what did you have? Because my UIM wasn't as big as theirs.
I think Frank had the maximum, which ended up being
Think
Yay,
about how many
Frank.
fortuitous. But these are the things I certainly never thought about. Thank God he was. But that really came into play. That was a big chunk of money. That was very helpful.
Well, it's helpful for me because I know now with a limited amount of money that's supposed to last me till I'm 95, I try to cut corners sometimes and not pay the extra for certain things because I'm like, I'm not going to need that. So if it's not required, I probably don't have that on my auto insurance.
It's correct.
You have
There
something.
is an amount required.
You have something. You
but
probably,
have-
but I mean, I think it can be anywhere from like a couple $100,000 to $1 million or something.
yeah.
There's a range, and you just choose. But it's something you might want to look at because when
Yeah,
I
definitely.
re-upped in my policy, I kept it the same.
Well, when you consider, and I don't know how many necessarily were uninsured drivers, but I can think of 4 people off the top of my head whose husbands were killed by drunk drivers.
Yeah, I just heard of another one.
That's
today.
crazy.
It is.
So even though people may feel like this doesn't happen all the time, it's happening all the time.
happens
But
all the
even
time.
health insurance, as boring as it is, I hear a lot of
Holly
women
gets
in
so
partic-
bored with me because I want to talk about it all the time.
Well,
All right, Holly, you have a list here. Let's run through it.
The
This
biggest
is-
thing is, do you have your will? And you
We
didn't have
did.
yours.
I did not.
We did. Did you, Lacey? Because he was so young.
honey, as soon as we got married.
Oh,
we
you
did.
were like, boy. Did you have one, Holly?
We had a will because Toby's dad had died,
Oh.
and when we were in our 30s, right after we got married. Well, actually, no, I take that back. That's when we got life insurance. And then we did not get our will until we were going on vacation without
The kids.
the kids.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful we had our will. I was not grateful that we had not upped our life insurance
Oh.
policy, which we were working on.
Hunter had just taken it down.
Oh,
I know.
We had just literally within days, and that's why I felt like the Dateline people were going to think I surely killed my husband because I was texting with the financial advisor days before saying, we just did the blood work. Let's don't get rid of the old policy before the new one checks in. And Oliver's like, it's in my email. I have to show you because he
That's
said,
crazy.
call me crazy, but until that other one is in place, I am not canceling.
And how
like,
long before he passed away did that happen?
days. Make sure your plan, when you're planning out your estate with your husband, not only your will, but also plan out life insurance as if he died the next day, would you have enough to live on for a lot?
Until you were 95.
Because think
Yeah.
about it. We were all young. This
Yeah.
is money you got to live on. And if you don't work, you really got to think about that. So,
All right, Will, okay, let's keep going. I know we probably run
What
through it all, but
about,
let's.
make sure you have all your passwords. We already talked about that.
Can I just bring one thing up that I thought was so great that Hunter did? We had files, and on the inside would be written the password. And so when he died, I had all of the passwords.
Oh, that
So-
scares me. What if somebody breaks in your house?
I know. That's
But
what I was
okay,
thinking.
I have
but-
mine in my safe. Like all
That's fine.
of
Does
the-
somebody have your safe?
They have my locks. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
But
Okay.
it's still scary. Even that's still scary because it's like if someone steals that, what do you? I mean,
Yeah, well, if someone wants to steal my phone bill, you're more than welcome to it. All right, keep going.
I was talking about financial.
Oh, okay.
we touched on this earlier a bit, but burial or cremation?
Yeah, you need to talk to your loved one about
Yeah.
that because, and in Lacey's case, where do you want to be buried?
Right.
Cheap box or fancy box?
Never the fancy box. Even if
box
they're alive and they say
versus-
fancy, when they're dead, they don't care.
Well,
My parents both would laugh, but they have it down to what we're going to say at the funeral. I'm not kidding.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
so I had lunch with a friend. This is a really good idea.
Okay.
She
I
said,
can't write it down.
She said to pick out your photos that you want at your funeral. Yes.
That is hilarious. Yeah, sure.
Because what if they pick? Because we're all like funny about our photo. You're not as picky as we are, Whitney.
It's just because I've been picked apart my whole career of actress, stand up, whatever. So
you
I'm
got
just like,
thick
whatever.
skin. I don't like. I think that's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
That is good. All right, keep
Okay,
going.
so once you've gone through the burial, cremation, whatever, you need to order multiple copies of the death certificate.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Like,
but I emailed a lot to people. I think I only had to mail an original, maybe three.
I think I got like
things.
10 copies, but I have
My
Submit.
dad had a whole folder of copies, and
Yeah.
we used them for a lot of stuff.
Really.
Yeah.
And the reason you want to do it then, you can always get more, but it's more expensive.
yeah.
right. You want to get them all at once. So
I guess
it's
now when
cheaper.
you could take a photo and email it, you're
Well,
right.
that's what I did with a lot of them. There weren't very many that needed an original copy. All right,
makes
what
it
else,
harder.
Holly?
the last thing on my list is advance directive.
Which means if is it like a living
like
will or
their
something?
wishes, which
If I'm on life support,
Yeah.
different medical
Yeah, so
scenarios.
did you have to make those
Yeah.
decisions?
if he had not been an organ donor, then I might have had to make that decision. But basically the way it works, you say you're an organ donor, they find the people who need the organs, then they take you off life support, you die, then they go in and take your organs. So I never had to make the decision.
That's probably a really important conversation. Was the organ donor just on his driver's license, or
Yeah.
you just knew, or
It was actually, I'm not sure. I'll have to
See,
go back and look.
If you don't ever mention it, I've often wondered this. Like, it's not like they're looking at his driver's
I
license.
think
If
they would
don't,
ask,
do you have
maybe.
to bring it up?
I
They
think they
ask
would
you?
ask. No, they tell us he's brain dead, and the next thing out of my mouth was he's an organ donor.
Oh, okay.
It was like
Well,
I didn't
Toby
even.
was too, but it was on his driver's license, and I never found out.
If he
But
died
I-
on the scene, though, by the
but
time.
he donated something because I got a thing
Oh,
in the
really?
mail. Thank you for being an organ donor, but I have no idea what was.
well,
wow, but you have
They-
no
They
idea.
didn't tell you.
I got something in the mail saying he donated these things, and they didn't give me the names of the people, but they gave me a little bio on each person.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
so it was like, this
I've
is a
never heard this. This is the
56-year-old.
business I've never heard of either.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do they hook up? How did they like? I know you guys have probably watched TV where they've hooked up the people who donated the something. Or how does that happen?
The association that facilitates the donor, they give the recipients an option of writing letters, and they give us an option. So I wrote a letter about who Hunter was,
Oh, that's cool.
and then it was distributed. I didn't receive any letters from anyone, but I did get bios on everyone. Like, this was a single father, truck driver, and he got this, and this was a 50-year-old woman, da-da-da-da-da.
Did you keep
So-
it?
Yeah, it's in his box with his ashes. I should get it out because I sometimes wonder, is the lady standing next to me got
I
Hunter's
think that's kind of cool.
kidneys? All right, so Lacey and I got a good tidbit this morning. One of the things that people may have issue with when someone dies is you can't get into their phone.
Oh, this happened to Gabe's friend who died.
Okay. Yeah, and it makes it very difficult to try to figure out the password or even get in touch with Apple, I guess. What was
Well, the parents could not get into their child's phone, and Gabe had the password. He was the only one that had the password.
That's crazy because what
Well,
kids
that
tell
kid
each
was
other their
smart
passwords?
That he did that.
Yeah. Well, if you don't want to share your password while you're living, you can do something on the iPhone. I'm sure it's probably on Androids as well, but on the iPhone, I'm going to tell you right now, it's called the Legacy. You go into settings, Apple ID, then you go into the password security, you scroll down, and there is a legacy contact option. And you can put in someone as your legacy contact, and they will be given permission to get into the phone if, in fact, they can prove that you're
Isn't
dead.
that a cool tip? We just learned that this morning.
Never
heard
of that.
I had
Yeah.
never heard of it either.
So, and you can also do it on your social
Just
media.
think
They
about
give you an
Apple
option
ID
for a
is
legacy.
a pretty
cool.
serious business. Like any of your photos.
Right. Lacey's so concerned about her photos on her iCloud.
Time to start deleting. Time to start getting rid of some of those photos.
But everything is your.
So we did kind of address several different things here, all that go under the umbrella of the business of widowhood. But the best way to handle all of this is to talk to your person or a family member ahead of time. That lets somebody know where all of these pieces of information are, and have an envelope or a file or whatever with all of this information in it, and then put it in your lockbox.
We ended up having Frank had it something called Mint, which people probably know about too, which is sort of a snapshot of all the accounts.
It's an app, yeah.
And so there's other ones, but we had Mint, and it kind of has everything in one place electronically. You can just have one person that maybe has your Mint login or.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know.
All right. Well, thanks. As always, thank you guys for listening. Please come and share the love on our Instagram, Every Widow Thing, and DM us and let us know how we're doing. See you next time.